So check this out. 2 Americans just pleaded guilty to running ransomware attacks for the notorious Russian ransomware gang BlackCat, the same ransomware group that's tied to the Change Healthcare breach, the biggest healthcare data breach in history. This isn't a hacker problem anymore. This is a broken system problem. A system that needs burned to the ground and rebuilt the right way. Those experts with their confidence suits and the calm voices, they were on the other side of right versus wrong this time. And that changes everything. This is Cybercrime Junkies. The news just hit that 2 cybersecurity professionals here in the US were arrested, charged, and pled guilty to actually working for the BLACK CAT ransomware gang. The implications this has on the Change Healthcare breach, which is the largest one in US history, are massive. And it shows how the entire ransomware system and the way we handle breaches here has to change. The process blown up and rebuilt. Have you ever noticed that the calmest person in the room when things happen at work all of a sudden is viewed as the smartest one? Like the second somebody says, relax, I've done this before, everyone's guard goes down. They exhale. That's when the real issue that today's episode is about pops up. They don't verify. They don't dig just a little bit deeper. The result is chaos and massive damage. Look, some ransomware disasters don't spiral out of control and make history because hackers are brilliant. They spiral because the people in charge trust the wrong people. Business leaders, well, they get conned. They have confidence in a calm voice, and common sense flies out the window. This is what happens when confidence and reassurance replaces trust but verify. On February 1st, 2024, a ransomware attack by the Russian LV BlackCat group on the United Health's Change Healthcare company crippled U.S. medical claim processing and pharmacy transactions, affecting nearly 193 million people. It's the largest healthcare data breach in U.S. history. It caused severe cash flow disruptions, with 80% of medical providers reporting massive revenue losses and 94% of all hospitals getting affected. An estimated 193 million individuals here in the US had their data, including personal, payment, and protected health information, all compromised. The intruders breached servers that were basically left wide open with no multi-factor authentication in place. That's basic stuff any first-year cyber student knows to have in place. United Healthcare's Change Healthcare ransomware attack wasn't just another data breach. It was the biggest breach this country has ever seen. Roughly 193 million of us got dragged into this mess, not because of some exotic 0-day or something really technical, but because there was some stupid server sitting there without MFA. The attackers walked in, exfiltrated 6 terabytes of data. That's a lot of data. And when I say exfiltrated, that's a fancy word for stole, right? But then the real damage started happening. Prescriptions stalled, claims froze, grandma couldn't get her medicine filled, surgeries got canceled, and small medical practices soon started filing bankruptcy. Healthcare billing across the country broke for months. Not hours, not days, not weeks, months. All because one door should have been locked that wasn't. So what happens in this case is ridiculous. It exposes so much. It shows us that ransomware negotiations are done in secret, with no oversight and no checks and balances. The entire cybersecurity industry is built around controls and standards and verifications, right? But when tens of millions of dollars are being transacted, the entire industry has built a model that says those rules don't apply when actually paying the bad guys. Do that in a private room with nobody looking and just act calm. Remember that you're special and you've done this before. Tell them that in a calm voice. It's run on trust in private conversations. And in this federal case, the people trusted to manage the crisis are accused of being part of the crime themselves. So here in the largest healthcare breach in U.S. history, attackers were tied to the Russian ransomware as a service gang called Alpha V and BlackCat. And for new watchers, every criminal gang has ridiculous names like Drunk Panda, Lockbit, Black Cat, etc. They've got websites, they've got logos, tattoo contests, and probably matching jackets for all we know. They operate as a ransomware as a service model, which is a polite way of saying organized crime with a subscription model. One group writes the malware, another group does the break-in. Everyone gets a cut. It's more like The Sopranos than iRobot or Hollywood's version of A Hacker in a Hoodie. And here in the initial breach we're talking about, the Change Healthcare, they did the attack and convinced Change Healthcare to pay $20 million to BlackCat, and it got paid. But then BlackCat disappears. They do what's called an exit scam. We'll get into that in just a second. And the data is still out there. And the ransomware negotiators who just pled guilty in federal court, they were also launching ransomware attacks on other victim companies in healthcare, banking, and manufacturing, working right alongside BlackCat, all the while convincing people to help them handle the payouts for the crimes that they actually committed in the first place. It's 50 shades of fraud. So you wired $20 million to Russian cyber criminals on the advice from your ransomware negotiator. Cool. You now have to cough up another 20 million more, along with 5 other places in your town. And somehow you're still not safe. So after Change Healthcare gets hit with ransomware, BlackCat, the group that ran the ransomware attack, pulls an exit scam, which is criminal slang for take the money, shut down operations, and disappear. Except here's what happens. In ransomware as a service, the people who actually stole the data are affiliates. Think of them like independent contractors. And some of them still had the data from Change Healthcare, which means you didn't buy safety. You bought silence from one crew while another crew still had all the leverage, which is why that confidence feels like competence, especially when the moments get tense. Like, why is that? Why is it when things get tense, people that stay calm and say they've handled it before get all the control without any checks and balances? Because that's exactly what happened here. Is it because people don't want conflict? Is it because everyone's a snowflake today? Everyone gets offended. Keyboard warriors troll people online. People easily get their feelings hurt, and so many feel entitled. So they don't want to verify the truth. They don't want to just say, hey, I trust you, but I got to verify this. We're talking about $20 million. They avoid friction at all costs so that not to offend somebody. How much of this has to do with the softening in our culture that contributed to all this? That's what I'm curious about, what you think about that. So in the Change Healthcare case, a second extortion attempt shows up. Same stolen data, different gang, same playbook. That alone should make us all kind of uncomfortable. Paying didn't end the risk. It just fractured it. So here's where this stops being a normal ransomware story, though. The weaknesses in the cybersecurity system that allowed this to happen twice to the same victim also allowed cybersecurity professionals, the guys that were supposed to be the good guys, to actually partner with the bad guys and launch ransom themselves. and negotiate on behalf of victims, even though they were partners with the criminals the whole time. All of this because the system itself has no checks and balances, and business leaders don't know otherwise. They just trust the person that's the most calm during a time of crisis. Persons that come in and say they've done this before. And I know this firsthand because I've seen this firsthand. This is what my company, NetGain, does. The only difference is we don't work for the bad guys, and we always encourage the victims to verify us every time and be present during all of the steps, because that way there are checks and balances. But not these other two guys. These guys were special. Federal investigators accepted guilty pleas from Ryan Goldberg and Kevin Martin, one a former incident response manager, the other a ransomware negotiator, who admitted they conspired to extort victims in several different industries, including healthcare, banking, and manufacturing, all throughout the US, and all using the BlackCat ransomware. According to court documents and Department of Justice statements, these men used their expertise, the very knowledge companies hire them for to prevent attacks, to identify vulnerabilities in their own clients and then deploy BlackCat ransomware against those people and those organizations. And from there, they would make extortion demands and they would profit from the proceeds. It's like, it's worse than a cop gone bad story. It's like where the referee joins the other team in the gang while writing the rules. These were Americans with suits who get called in by victims after an attack, who learn the tricks of the trade and launch that harm on other victims. People who should have been defenders now admitting to being part of the criminal offense side. And that's a bigger problem than these two convicted felons. That's a systemic problem. At the end of the day, according to Department of Justice statements, Goldberg and Martin face up to 20 years in prison. They're scheduled for sentencing in March 2026, and we'll have an update here when that happens, because this case matters, but maybe not for the reasons that you might think. The sentencing here matters because it's a clear shift toward treating ransomware prosecution like organized crime rather than a technical violation. This isn't theoretical risk anymore. This is now law enforcement action. See, their story, the ransomware defenders turning cyber criminals themselves, and the story of Change Healthcare demonstrate the same problem. The model of ransomware negotiation is absolutely broken. Ransomware negotiations are largely private. Chat logs sit on Tor, the Onion router, the software that allows you to get to the dark web anonymously because it sits on an anonymizing network, meaning you can't easily know who's on the other end. Wallet addresses, moving crypto, do it anonymously, do it fast. And decisions in ransomware cases happen at 2 o'clock in the morning between executives, lawyers, insurers, and negotiators, all based on trust. No independent verification, no second set of eyes on the negotiation or transaction itself. Ransomware negotiation concentrates enormous power in a single role at the exact moment they should be doing the opposite. The system that's built today stops asking questions at the exact moment it should be asking more. Look, security teams preach all the time about separation of duties and least privilege, and then run the most expensive decision in a company's history, like California and New York run their elections. No verifications needed, just come on in. We believe you because you said so. And so long as you don't offend the ultra-sensitive ones and don't make any friction, everything will be okay. Look, this isn't paranoia. It's about friction. Boring, adult in the room friction. A second set of eyes. Verification that doesn't care how confident and calm somebody sounds. controls that will survive stress instead of collapsing under it. This isn't about distrusting everybody. It's about not confusing reassurance with proof. Because once you see this clearly, the whole story snaps into focus. The Change Healthcare breach and the 2 convicted felons didn't spiral because some hacker was brilliant. They spiraled because everyone stopped asking questions at the exact moment they mattered most.